I was feeling this thing. Oh, hi, Kyle White. How are you today?
I'm doing all right. Just been getting some work done at home.
Okay. I was just talking to these two about the environment and the Anthropocene in relation to violence. There's so much irreversible damage that's been done. Irreversible in our lifetimes, at least.
What I can't help but think is for a lot of Indigenous people and other groups too, we've already been through change like that and fairly recently. So my tribe, the Potawatomi, we've experienced due to U.S. colonialism and also Canadian colonialism, repeated irreversible ecological change.
It sounds like you're saying that the environmental movement has failed. If so, do you think it's from the assumption that climate change is something to solve, presupposing human superiority?
When the environmental movement pretends as if the current climate change ordeal is unprecedented, it makes it possible for people to forget the many, many decades and centuries of environmental violence that people in the United States and other nations have perpetrated against Indigenous people, people of color, and other groups. Second, it's not just that the environmental movement can, sometimes be looked at as being based on human superiority. In particular, it's the type of human superiority that's oftentimes assumed. And so in the United States, for example, the type of human superiority that I see most often in the environmental movement is the privilege of white people and the idea that it's white people that are the face of the environmental movement, and if other people are to be the face of the environmental movement, it's only instrumental for white people to advance their causes. And that the idea of a lot of environmentalism is to try to save something of what society is like today. And even though today is very bleak for a lot of other groups of people, like Indigenous people. And that leads me to a really key topic that I look at in my work is not to prop up human superiority. Rather, it's to be able to actually prop up non-humans and the importance of our relationships to non-humans.
Oh, one sec. Wait for it.
It is the art of living.
An orange. Who do you think's in that car? My guess is Rachel Harrison. What do you think about the idea of psychological distance in terms of a disconnect from one's ancestral past? I'm reminded of Deleuze and Guattari's Capitalism and Schizophrenia, where they wrote about libido and desire in capitalism, bodies without organs, all of which are in direct connection to colonial violence. Do you think there can be some sustainable form of capitalism for both workers and the environment?
Sustainable capitalism, insofar as we're defining capitalism as involving a, particular type of labor exploitation, a particular type of commodification, and involving a type of ideology that produces ignorance. And I also don't think that we can think about ways to even improve capitalism if we're not considering how colonialism and other forms of oppression and domination are coupled with capitalism in this particular instance. And so the example you brought up, I think, is a really good one. So if we're just looking at capitalism in isolation and a type of colonialism like settler colonialism, which here just refers to a type of colonization where the colonizing powers not only seek to exploit resources from a location, but they seek to permanently live there and then try to find a way to play make-believe that they are morally entitled to be there. So if you look at settler colonialism, and you asked me, which side of the political spectrum, is probably better for dismantling it, I would say neither. What's oftentimes referred to as the right or the left, both are completely colonial, and non-Indigenous environmentalists that want to be allies, if they recognized what you're talking about as this machine, and they recognize not only the benefits they get from it, but the ways in which it makes them ignorant, both to their history and their current situation, and they realize that whether one was far to the left, or far to the right, when it comes to Indigenous people, that part of the political spectrum is not helpful. And they need to rethink what it means to have a political identity and an identity for allyship that's not dependent on where they fall on a right to left spectrum.
Hi, Lucas.
Hey, do you think it's interesting that the word spearmint sounds like experiment? Like, hey, I'll call you later once I've finished this spearmint. Or maybe Wrigley's was inventing spearmint gum and labeled all the packaging experiment gum back in 1893. And an employee was walking down the streets of Chicago and offered a piece to his friend, and that person said, "Gee whiz, I was getting tired of your belly aching. This newfangled Taffy Tolu is full of razzmatazz. What flavor is it?" And the Wrigley's employee said, "Experiment."
Oh. That's so